Hey, my beautiful people. I am about to do my podcast live. I'm going to try this thing again this way. Typically, with my podcast, it is all audio. You don't get to see me, and I can't see you. My podcast is called Shine with Kendell Lenice, available where all podcasts are played. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spreaker, everywhere. Everywhere podcasts are played, you will be able to listen and watch my podcast. Let me just make sure my lighting is straight. Let's see here. You are seeing the behind the scenes of my podcast, Shine with Kendell Lenice. Y'all ready?
Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host. Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together. Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Kendell Lenice. Allow me to introduce myself to you just a little bit further. I am a certified Transformational Life Coach, Speaker, and author, as well as a certified meditation practitioner and content creator. I'm so glad that you decided to join me on my life podcast. On this podcast, I will educate, elevate, and entertain you with various topics. We will do live coaching, and I will hopefully give you a different perspective on some of your favorite topics and introduce you to new ones. I'm not sure how you stumbled upon this podcast. I'm just so glad you did. Before we get started, do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and rate if you are able to. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. And now on to this week's show. It was sponsored by 617 Lip Love, Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm by K.Lenice. Get yours today at LeniceBoutique.com. This product is for men and women in its signature flavor, EUCALYPTUS MINT. It's the bomb, y'all. Get it today at LeniceBoutique.com. Protect your lips, heal your lips at all costs. 617 Lip Love Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm. Get yours today at LeniceBoutique.com. Support Black businesses, support women-owned businesses. LeniceBoutique.com.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Transformational Life Coach, your favorite girl, the remix coach, Kendell Lenice. Thank you so much for tuning in to Shine this week. You know, I just appreciate y'all. I appreciate everyone who tunes in to Shine with Kendell Lenice, the audio podcast. Like, this is an old school podcast. Now podcasts are visual, but I've been doing this podcast thing for a minute and it's audio, except for today. I am going live on YouTube. I did this twice before. This is the third time I'm doing that. So the audio is available wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spreaker, and YouTube. The audio is on YouTube, and so is the visual. So wherever you get your podcast, wherever you feel like listening, do me a favor and subscribe if you can, like and comment on this podcast. As you all know, as the intro said, I'm a transformational life coach, speaker, author, all of these things. But most importantly, I'm a woman of a certain age who has lived through her experiences. I always say I coach from an honest, experience-driven place. So I am not a perfect person. There you go. I'm not going to be a perfect coach, but I will be your perfect coach. And when I say that, I say perfect loosely. What that means is I'm not going to be just coaching. Yeah, I got the book knowledge. Yeah, I got the degrees. Yeah, I got the certifications, but I coach from a place of experience, a place of I've been there, that type of experience, and also from that book place, if you will. So you'll get a little bit of everything when I coach you. For more information about the coaching, visit livingtrue.livingyou.com. All right, y'all. I hope you had an amazing couple of weeks. I've been MIA for a minute because I've been moving. I started a new role, or added some more to my plate. So I've just been trying to divide that time and figure it out. But I never will forget you all, and I'll never be gone too long. Everything is good now. I'll be back on track, even though you'll get 4 a month, or you might get 2 a month, depending on the month. But most of the time, it's at least 4, doing it once a week. So thank you so much for your patience. And I have plenty of shows on here. This is episode 164, maybe. So if you're missing me a week, please go back and listen to one of your favorite ones. Y'all know in the beginning, I used to have guests, some amazing guests on here. But I guess maybe a year ago, I started coaching because people had been asking me questions and inboxing me. And I kind of revamped the podcast to give everything is about education, elevation, and entertainment. So to give you a little coaching with some of the issues or concerns that people have from the day-to-day basis. Even if I'm not coaching you, I'll still be able to coach you through this and teach you, because that's really what it's about. We're all on a journey together about growth and betterment. Hopefully you want to be better today than you were yesterday. Hopefully that is your goal. I know that's definitely my goal. All the time, you're not going to meet the mark, but you're going to get up the next day with God's grace, and you're going to push through some more. All right. So what's been happening before I even get started? Today, we're going to be talking about conflict resolutions, how to handle conflict the right way. And it's okay if you're not handling it the right way now. Hopefully, as you continue to grow, you will be able to handle it the way that works for you. A lot has been going on. I just want to pay my respects on the podcast to Nene Leakes' husband, Greg Leakes. He passed away a few days ago due to his battle with colon cancer. And y'all know that hits near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is I got a chance to interview Nene for Sheen Magazine's Sheen Talk on Instagram. And I asked her how Greg was doing. And this was a few months ago. And she was saying he was doing well. He was in remission. He was eating right. He was doing the right things. And he was in remission. Now to fast forward, he passed away of colon cancer. And it hits differently also because many may know, but many may not know, as of March 2021, just this year, I became a colon cancer survivor. So just hearing that, it saddened me. He was 66 years old. I was like, Dad, go on. So they just had a celebration of life for him, and a lot of the housewives and other people came out to celebrate him. Everybody talks about what a good dude Greg Leakes was. Also, I want to pay respects to Michael K. Williams. Y'all know him from The Wire as Omar and so many other amazing movies. He was in When You See Us. He was in just so many movies. Y'all remember him. He had the scar from here, and I'm on YouTube pointing from his forehead through his nose and by his cheek. But he also started as a dancer. He was on 100% Real Love. That Crystal Waters song, the video. So he started as a dancer. Many people don't know. And he made it to Hollywood as an actor. So I just want to say a silent prayer for them and their families, and really send my condolences, because the show is about conflict resolution, but I got to just take a minute and talk about the drugs that are running rampant in our communities. And now they're being laced with fentanyl. So I've heard this week, about 4 people passing away due to drug overdoses because the drugs were laced in fentanyl. Now, yes, of course, say no to drugs. Y'all know that came from New Edition, by the way, not Nancy Reagan, but she asked New Edition one time, what do they say to drugs? And they said, say no to drugs. And that became Nancy Reagan's throne, her whole platform. And that came from New Edition. So that's a little fun fact. But of course, people say, well, you should just say no to drugs. Like, don't worry about it. Fentanyl was in it. If you weren't taking drugs or using drugs, then it wouldn't be a big deal. But even if someone decides, and sadly that is their choice, they're lacing it with fentanyl and it's killing people. So many people just over the last weekend have passed away. And the comedian Fuqua Johnson, which is a good friend of Damian Wayans, not Damon, Damian, the nephew, and Marlon. And it was just a few people that I kept hearing passed away because of that. So now they're going to try to look for the drug dealers to press charges, which, you think about that and it's like, dang, you're looking for the drug dealers to press charges because they laced it with fentanyl. But to me, you should have been looking for them anyway because they're illegal drugs. You know what I'm saying? So I just really want to, a lot of people are using drugs to escape whatever pain from their childhood. And y'all know as a life coach, I'm all about healing. I even want to open up a center, a wellness center with life coaching, meditation, for growth, for healing, and for freedom. So that's really near and dear to my heart, because if people were healed from some of the things they're trying to escape with drugs, then maybe drugs wouldn't be running as rampant in our communities. A lot of people need an escape, whether it's alcohol, drugs, weed. Some think that's not a drug, but I just want us to heal. And I want us to heal. Yeah, because it's taking us out. It's taking us out. And a lot of them are prescription drugs too, not just cocaine or, something like that. A lot of them are prescription drugs, and it's taken us out. Even Keisha Cole's mom, Frankie, drug overdose. Prince, even though it was prescribed, out of here. Whitney Houston, out of here. They say drugs were in Bobby Christina's system. No, I'm just going by what they say. I don't know factually. Michael Jackson, even, and we know with his doctor, we know that whole situation. But those are just a few. If I sat here and really thought, those are just off the dome. If I sat here and really thought about it, it would be much more heartbreaking. So between colon cancer and drugs, folks are checking out. Chadwick Boseman, colon cancer. Natalie DeSalle Reed from BAPS, colon cancer. I just saw something on Instagram. I was a couple, a Black love couple, and she just lost her husband, and they showed their little love story to colon cancer. So, everyone, get your colonoscopies. It's important, and heal your hearts and your soul. It's important, but we'll talk about that later. It just really, we're checking out, y'all. Especially in the Black community, we really have to know that it's okay to heal. It's okay to seek help and get help and be better. It's okay. Les Brown says you're weak, not because you're ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. Whether you hire a life coach, counselor, a therapist, a pastor, a priest, somebody, just don't keep everything in, because Black folks were born into trauma, into issues, into, traumatic situations. All right. Trying to think if I should take a break real quick and then get started. Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick break and get started. Be right back.
Thank you for shining with me, Kendell Lenice. If you're here for the very first time, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to the show and don't forget to tell your friends and family about the show. We'll be right back.
Sorry, I was taking a quick sip of kombucha, the tangerine turmeric kind. It's so good. Oh, I didn't tell y'all. I do, if you want to order health drinks and health shots and juicing, and I make health shots, go to LeniceBoutique.com. Oh, it ain't at LeniceBoutique.com. I got a lot going on. It's at Kendelllenice.com. And you click the second tab and it says buy health drinks. So that's another form of healing your body, and not putting all that junk in there. All right. As always, let's start with this week's life note.
All right, it's time for this week's life note.
All right. So as I stated, the show is all about conflict resolution. So the life note is a saying that will carry you through the show, through the week, or through your life. Conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. Max Lucado. Don't know who he is, but it's a heck of a quote. Conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. Max Lucado. That's the life note for this week. All right, let's get right into it, shall we? Oh, I forgot. If this is your first time tuning in to Shine with Kendell Lenice, I don't know how you stumbled upon this podcast. It's a life podcast, but I'm glad you did. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend about this podcast. All right. So conflict resolution is a way for two or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement amongst them. The disagreement may be personal, financial, political, or emotional. When a dispute arises, often the best course of action is negotiation to resolve the disagreement. So, have you had trouble coming to a resolution when you have conflict, an argument, a debate? Have you had trouble coming to a middle ground, or did you want to be right and then the other person wanted to be right, or the other person's wanted to be right, and you still find yourself in a conflict of some sort and no resolution in sight? A lot of people just don't understand. They learn how to fight, and that's what they continue to do. Talking about the fight or flight, or they feel defensive, and many people feel defensive and they're ready to fight without even trying to think of a solution. And then it just becomes an issue at that point. And you can have to ask yourself, do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be right? Or do you want to really resolve the conflict? Whether you're having it with a coworker, a spouse, a friend, a good girlfriend, or a good male friend, or a cousin, or sister, or aunt, someone in the family, conflict never feels good. Now, you do have those people who love conflict, who love drama, who love to get things popping and get things going, but then you have people who really want to resolve conflict, but they don't know how to do it. And the thing about resolving conflict, both parties or all parties, it could be more than two people, they have to be in agreement of the solutions and the resolutions of conflict. If everybody is not on board with the resolution or solution then conflict is going to go around. Merry-go-round in circles. It's going to go right around in circles. All right. So as I was doing research, and I'll talk about, what I think, but I like to get facts sometimes because facts are good, right? 7 steps to resolve conflict. And I'm going to start with my list, and then I'm going to go to a list from Paradigm Treatment. It's the name of an organization. All right. So the first step to resolving conflict is really acknowledging that you have conflict. You ever have conflict or beef and the other person don't even know you got conflict or beef? So you're mad and you're making the person pay for conflict that they don't even know exists, right? So you have to first acknowledge, okay, hey, something's going on here. Something is just not right. We can't get on the same page. What's going on? That's the first step to resolving conflict, is acknowledging that there is conflict. And then also agree to resolve the conflict. That's the second step. So acknowledging that you have conflict is the first step, and agreeing to wanting a resolution, because you could two people or more can know you have conflict, but 2 people, as I was saying, may not even want to resolve it. They might say it is what it is and leave it, right? So you want to agree to resolve this. The next step is to establish ground rules for the discussion. For example, listen here, you ain't going to talk over me. I'm not going to talk over you. We're going to respect one another's opinions, decisions, and outlooks. And we're going to wait to speak after you've completed your sentence. Now, we're not going to speak over each other. We are going to respectfully wait for the other person to speak. We are going to actively listen, and we're going to wait to speak, not wait to come up with the idea, oh, like double dutch. Let me jump in. Let me jump in. Let me jump in. Let me get hurt. Let me get hurt. Let me get hurt. No, you're actually going to actively listen. Many people do double dutch, like, and I'm jumping. If you're watching on YouTube, you see me. If you're listening to the audio, you're like, what's she doing? You know how double dutch. Think about if you play double dutch. I used to love double dutch. And you do your little dance to get in, like, wait, let me get the turn. Let me get it. Let me get it. And then you jump in. That's how people wait for to speak. They're just thinking about what they're not thinking about what you're saying. They're thinking about their response or rebuttal or defensive reaction to what you're saying. So setting ground rules is just that. Now listen, we ain't gonna be yelling. Or wait, we might yell, but let's make sure that we only yell for 60 seconds, and then we're going to bring it down to a whisper. You can have ground rules, but the problem with most people, they don't have ground rules. They're just upset, angry, hurt, feeling mistreated, and they want to just vent out. How many of you have done that? I know I've done that, where you're hurt, or somebody says something and you feel like you got to be defensive. You feel like you got to defend yourself. You got to feel like that's not true instead of just listening. We've all been there. I know I've been there, even with the tools I have, because sometimes it's coming from an emotional place. And that only happens if you rock with people like that, if you love the person. If you can care less about what that person feels, thinks, or, about you, or then that's nothing. That's water under the bridge. You like, I'm good, you good, it's over. It's only when the emotions and feelings get involved where it gets personal and it gets hurtful, sometimes before it gets healed. All right. The next step is take turns explaining your thoughts. That's what I was saying earlier. So I just wanted to say, you made me feel, I felt as though, people say, I felt as though, I felt like what you said was disrespectful. It hurt my feelings, right? That's the person. So the other person's response is, I don't care. It ain't hurt I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings. No, You have to respect someone's view and feeling and say, I understand I hurt your feelings. And at this point, I'm sorry for hurting your feelings. You don't respond, I didn't hurt your feelings, because those are their feelings, right? So they can tell you if their feelings were hurt. Even if that wasn't your intentions, you have to pause and say, I accept that, I own that, I apologize. It's not about whether you did or didn't. It's about how that person feels, okay? So you have to give each other a time, not just, you ever have someone say how they feel and then they shut down and they don't care how you feel. They either leave the room, they hang up, or they disagree with everything you say. They don't even take the time to listen to your view. They just want to tell you about what they feel. And after they've done that, then they don't care about how you feel. And that's not effective communication or conflict resolution, because you're just going to make the other person matter. All right. The next step is to identify the conflict. What is it? As I said earlier, some may not even know it's a conflict. So you want to say the conflict was when you did this. And then effective communication is, so, and if you go back to the last episode of Shine with Kendell Lenice, I did 4, I think, communication styles or way to communicate. So if you need to know how to communicate, go back to the previous episode, and it's all about communication, right? So you got to get your communication down so you get the conflict resolution down pat. Yes? Yes. All right. So next step, you want to take turns exploring options to resolve the conflict. Now, one person can't come up with the way to resolve the conflict, right? It has to be both parties coming up with ways that work best for both. Because one person can't leave feeling slighted. Both people have to understand that the conflict needs to be resolved with both parties, not just the one party. Both people have to leave the room feeling like something was accomplished, not just one person, because it's about both parties or both groups, because it could be conflict with your whole family. And you got to sit down with 10 people and try to resolve conflict. All right. Next step. Agree on a solution. All right, so we stated the conflict. We both agreed that this is a conflict. We both agreed that this is the issue, concern, or problem. Now let's agree on how we're going to fix this problem. So after brainstorming, it's time to find an agreement, right? First, discuss which idea might make the most sense given the circumstances, or might identify the solution that everyone involved can agree upon. At this stage, review all possibilities and then come up with an agreement of the solution. You see how it's inclusive? Everyone has to agree. Then out loud say, okay, doggone it, this is the solution. So once you've made the agreement, state the solution. Like the solution is, we're not going to talk when we're sleepy, tired, or hungry, sad, angry, or depressed. This is the solution. We're going to speak when both of our or all of our minds are clear. We have nothing in our systems, and we can come from a place of love. That could be a solution, right? Decide when to evaluate the solution. So what does that mean? Before you end the discussion, decide on whether you will need to reconvene. Like, okay, we're going to try this for 60 days. If in 60 days, blah, blah, blah doesn't happen, then we're going to come back to the table. If we've had a little mini hiccup in the middle, then we're going to say, okay, we thought we had this solution right, but this is not the solution. Let's see how we can kind of tailor this to us. Because you can come up, when you're not mad and angry and upset, you can come up with a solution and it can sound brilliant. But then when you have to put it to the test, how many of you have done that? I'm like, yeah, I've done it. Like, okay, I'm not going to let nobody knock me off my square. I'm going to be unbothered like Giselle on Real Housewives of Potomac. I'm going to sit there unbothered. And then next thing I know, somebody will knock me off my square and I got to start from one, like, dang on it. So it's about you really working on yourself and working with yourself to not be shaken by someone else, even if they're critical or finger pointing or saying something that's untrue. If you know that something is untrue, if you know that it's not the way someone thinks it is, then you can just kind of be silent. And that takes practice. It's not easy to do, but you can be unbothered. And it takes skill to be unbothered. Hello, somebody. All right. So when you're talking about conflict resolution, again, you got to make sure both parties are in agreement that there is a conflict. Do you ever talk to somebody and be like, well, I wasn't speaking to you? You'd be like, oh, I didn't know this. I'm sorry. You don't even know it's a conflict. And then that could be a problem because one person is mad and they think it's a conflict, then the other person doesn't even know it's a conflict. And that's why communication is so important. That happens all the time. Where I remember I was watching a show, Girlfriends, and William was like, I wasn't talking to y'all. And they was like, you weren't? I didn't notice. And then they had to pretend like they noticed. And he was like, I wasn't even talking to y'all. And they were like, Darnell said, William is not talking to y'all. And they were like, he's talking to us. We just saw William. They were like, well, did you notice he wasn't talking? They were like, no, we didn't notice. And that's what happens a lot. One person will have conflict, be in their feelings, and the other person is cooking breakfast. They don't even know. So both people have to know that there's a conflict going on in order to resolve the conflict. So let's see some examples of conflicts, or let's try some approaches. All right. Let's give 5 conflict resolution strategies. This is coming from Portland Community College. Go figure. I do my research, and where I find stuff, right? Never been to Portland, but they got something to say. So what are 5 conflict resolutions strategies? Avoiding. Number 1. Someone who uses strategy of avoiding mostly tries to ignore or sidestep the conflict, hoping it will resolve itself in dissipation. Now let's just talk about that for a moment. How many people, it could be you that I'm talking to, how many people do this? I think a lot of people do that. They avoid it thinking that if they don't address the conflict, then doggone it, there ain't no conflict, right? A lot of people think that if I avoid it, the conflict will just magically go away. And then what happens when you're avoiding it, you're going to have to come face to face with that conflict. And sometimes it's extra heated because now it's some seasoning on it. It's some Lawry's on it. It's some Bobby Brown seasoning. It's some Morton's Nature seasoning all over it because you didn't avoid it before. You didn't address it before you avoided it. All right. Number 2. What are the 5 conflicts of resolution strategy? Accommodating. Using the strategy of accommodating to resolve conflict essentially involves taking steps to satisfy the other party's concerns or demands at the expense of your own needs. So even if you're pissed off, right? Even if you know you're right, you accommodate the other person because they might be softer, gentler, more emotional, not know how to handle certain things. So you accommodate their feelings and you neglect your own. That's what some people do. That's a strategy that people use. I can't say it works often. 3 is compromising. The strategy of compromising involves finding an acceptable resolution that will partly, but not entirely satisfy the concerns of all parties. And I like that one because I'm all for a good compromise. Let's compromise. Let's see how we can resolve this issue. Number 4, competing. Someone who uses the conflict resolution strategy of competing tries to satisfy their own desires at the expense of all other parties. That's kind of selfish, right? The last one is collaborating, which I love. Collaborating, compromising, you're working together. Using collaborating involves finding a solution that entirely satisfies the concerns of all involved parties. The Thomas Kilmann model identifies 2 dimensions people fall into when choosing a conflict resolution strategy: assertiveness and cooperativeness. Assertiveness involves taking an action to satisfy your own needs, while cooperativeness involves taking action to satisfy other needs. Each of the conflict resolution strategies are involve different degrees of assertiveness, and cooperativeness. For example, while accommodating includes a high degree of cooperativeness and a low degree of assertiveness, competing consists of a low degree of cooperativeness and a high degree of assertiveness. Choosing the right conflict resolution method is not always easy, but you got to work together and you got to work on your skill set. This is why I changed Shine with Kendell Lenice to this format to do life coaching, because many people have the same issues. They're just different people at different stages and ages and levels, but a lot of people have the same issues: how to resolve conflict, how to stop being combative, how to, whether it's conflict, again, in the workplace, in your household, in your friend group, wherever, in your family structure, at the family reunion, y'all sitting there trying to handle conflict, which ain't the time. So that's another thing. The time and the place is crucial to resolving conflict. So many people say, well, how do you handle conflict? Explain how I should handle it. How do you handle disagreements? Think about that. Even when you go for a job interview, right? They ask you, how do you handle conflict? Why? Because they don't want you tearing up their spot. They don't want you acting a fool. They want to know that you're able to handle conflict. So this show right here is not just about how to handle with your friend group. It could be a matter of how to get a job and how to keep a job, or how to have a relationship or not. So conflict resolution takes skills, and some people don't have the skill set to resolve conflict, but I want everyone to have the skill set to do that. And as I stated last episode was about communication. So that's one of the skill sets that you need to resolve conflict effectively. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it right every single time. It's about growth. It's about trying something different. It's about trying to be better. You're not going to be better overnight. This is a process, or some people say a process. Here's a big one. Emotional intelligence. That's a huge one, because most people are coming from a place of their emotions being arrested as a child, meaning that something happened in their life where their emotions kind of got stuck. So they grew up, but their emotions didn't grow up, right? All right. So emotional intelligence is just the ability to understand and use and manage your own emotions in a positive way, to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, and overcome challenges, to diffuse conflict. So you got to make sure your emotional intelligence game is up to par. And sometimes when you're in your feelings, your emotional intelligence is not so intelligent, right? We've all had times where you're like, dang, I let my emotions get the best of us. How many people have done that? I've done it. Where I'm like, dang, I let my emotions get the best. There's that square, I knocked off my square. And then you pick up and you be better. Like nobody's going to be perfect all the time. Even a life coach, I'm a life coach. I have all the tools I need, but that doesn't mean I'm a superhuman. I'm still fallible. I'm still going to make mistakes. And that's why I say I coach from an honest place. Yes, I have all the accolades to coach you professionally, but I also coach from an honest place. I'm not going to be coaching someone like, you need to use your emotional intelligence all the time. You need to be perfect. And then I've messed up before and let my emotions get the best of me. So it's about being honest and being upfront with who you are and acknowledging and owning it, and being able to hold yourself accountable for your own actions. All right. Another skill that you will need to effectively resolve conflict is stress management. Now, if you're all razzle dazzled and frazzled, right, and you don't know how to handle stress, then it's going to come off in that conversation you have with somebody, and you're not going to be able to resolve the conflict because you're ready to pop off. If he says one more thing, if she says one more thing, ain't nothing going to be resolved. Go home, take a nap, go to sleep, wake up, resolve it after your stress levels have gone down. Impartiality. Now, you have to be impartial to sometimes even what you think or believe if you run to resolve conflict, because you have to be able to open up and listen to what someone else is saying. And with that, also a skill set that you'll need is empathy, right? A lot of people mix up sympathy with empathy. Like, oh, I feel sorry for you. But empathy is understanding and sharing the feelings of someone else, like really putting yourself in their shoes and really understanding. Like, think about, like, if I lost my grandmother, which I did, by the way, and I'm going to, talk about that at the end. I would want somebody to do this. If I got divorced, I would hope somebody can understand. Let me put myself in their shoes. If I lost a job, I wonder how I would feel. That's empathy. Like, you may not know, but you take a moment to maybe possibly understand what someone else is going through. And also, you have to be able, a skill that you need is negotiation. All right, so what we're going to do here? So let's think about how we're going to resolve this. This is going to happen, what we're going to do, blah, 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 right? So that's a way to, that's a skill set that you'll be able to use. So that's communication, emotional intelligence, stress management, empathy, impartiality, and negotiation, to try to figure out how we going to work this here thing out. And also remember, you want to acknowledge that there's conflict. You want to agree to talk about it and set ground rules. You want to take turns explaining your feelings, your thoughts about whatever is going on. You want to identify the conflict, and you want to figure out a way and come up with solutions on how to resolve it, and then agree upon the solution. That's what you're going to want to do to be able to do that. Now, is it going to be easy all the time? Absolutely not. But is it doable if this is what you want to do? So to successfully resolve conflict, you'll need to practice your skills. All those skills I talked about, you need to strengthen those skills and test yourself. You're not always going to pass the test, but you'll be able to get better each time. You want to have the ability to quickly be able to resolve it, because a lot of times the more time that gets under your belt, the harder it will be to resolve the conflict. So you can have conflict with yourself, and you can deal with that by praying, by reading positive words, by maybe listening to uplifting music, maybe being able to do that. You can have conflict with others, and that's what we were talking about. You can even have conflict with the environment, and when it comes to the elements outside. I mean, whatever it is, you can have conflict. And the way to deal with that is to task the conflict, figure out if it's important to resolve the conflict, and then respect whoever you're talking to or the situations, respect what they say, respect what you say, even if you don't agree, and to really be able to come to some sort of understanding. And hopefully, you know, you want to. Sometimes conflict resolution is like, okay, then you go over here, I go over here, and we'll meet back at another time. Or let's agree not to even resolve the conflict. But hopefully you'll want to be able to do that, even if you're not going to work at that job anymore, if you're not going to be married anymore, if you're not going to be friends anymore, if you're going to be distanced from your family, whatever it is, you still want to give those people an opportunity to resolve it, because you don't want that book on you. You know, life is too short. You don't want that on you where you're walking around with 5 or 6 unresolved matters. So you want to be able to do that, because that will free you. And ultimately, you want to be free. Remember, you want to be free, you want to be healed, and you want to grow at some point. So you want to get all of that ooey gooey negativity out and really handle that. Now, if you have somebody that doesn't want to resolve the conflict, then you've done your best to do that. And that's all you can do, right? It's about growth, it's about learning, and it's about really understanding yourself with others, and understanding others better, and figuring out ways to deal with that conflict. All right, y'all. So that is all about conflict resolutions today. Again, if you missed last episode, I talked about 4 styles and effective ways to communicate. So that is one of the skill sets you'll need to resolve conflict. All right. So I wanted just to take a moment before I end this episode of Shine with Kendell Lenice, just to talk about my grandmother and to just honor her. She passed away at 101 since I've seen you last. She passed away last week. We've had her funeral and everything. So I just want to give a shout out to my grandmother, Etta Francisco. She was 101. I got a chance to speak at her funeral, and I did the poem Footprints. And I just want to take a moment to read that here as a final, I don't want to say a final goodbye, because it's really not a final goodbye, because I am her and she is me, you know, and she is, you know, that's legacy. So Footprints was introduced to me by my grandmother when I was a teenager. So anytime we had a birthday party, a funeral, an event, since I was a teenager, she had me recite Footprints. So at the end of this show, which is now, I just want to end with that. But remember, you're a star. Don't allow anyone to dim your shine. Until next time, God bless. Peace. Footprints. One night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene, he noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to him and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in his life. This really bothered him. He questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave. The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you, and I would never leave you during your times of trial and suffering. When you see only one set of footprints, it was then when I carried you. Thank you for tuning in to Shine with Kendell Lenice. God bless you.
Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.